Welcome to another live veterans view for you. Bum ba da dun 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 dun. There's a lot of talk out there about suicide, and one of the things near and dear to my heart, being a veteran, is veterans suicide awareness. So I'll just throw this out there. This is the Veterans Crisis Line. If you're a veteran and you are in need of immediate assistance, go ahead and give them a call. Glad you're still around. But here we go. We are tying this lovely, lovely mouse. I originally got the inspiration from a different mouse. This one's a lot bigger. This is the one that we picked up at the fly tying shop in Duluth, Minnesota. So when you're in Duluth, Minnesota, check out the fly tying shops. Yeah. So I came across this quite some time ago. It was, I don't know, a few years ago when I first started tying. My wife picked it out of the bin, and she really enjoyed it. Thought it looked cool, and I said, you know what, someday I'll be able to tie myself one of those. And here I am. You know, it's not the exact same deal, but you know, I think I've come pretty close. And you know, it's not about having exact replicas and things like that. It's where you draw your inspiration and get your ideas from. That's what matters. So, for a hook, we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna take this guy down, get him out of the way. I almost want to name these little rascals. I am using a hook and hackle. It's an item number 371875, and it looks like that's the letter I, which is a very similar number down there, but it's a size 6. It's a big old buggy bass hook. Big, I don't know, interesting bend on it. So, there we go. This is the beginning element. Really want to make sure you got a good, good strong bite on that. Gonna be doing putting a lot of tension on that hook tonight. So, for a thread, I am using a 2/0 silk. It's a black thread. I've tried using stuff that's a little more narrow, but the end result was I kept breaking it. Again, I'm putting a lot of pressure and doing a lot of pulling and using a lot of tension. So, anyways, like all good flies, begin with a single wrap of thread. There we go, number 1. Just going to cast on my thread just above the hook itself, and not going to run too far with that. Just getting the thread locked in there. When you're tying this fly, we are going to be making it's a big mess, but it's worth it in the end. So I don't know, that's my disclaimer. You know, you're not going to crank this one out on your lunch break, unless you have a long lunch break or a really quick untying. So, in this fly, I'm decided to incorporate a little weed guard. For this, I'm using, I don't know if it's just an 18 pound, that's what I'm going to presume. And there's an identifier of a number 19. I don't know exactly what that means, but I don't know, 18 pound monofilament. It's really kind of soft. It's not too sharp or whatnot. This is actually probably enough for 2 of them, but we'll get there. So when I tie this in, I'm gonna just go ahead and just take it all the way to the eye of the hook as far as length. I'm gonna do a few wraps working up and towards the eye just to get that initial bite, and then I'm going to start working it down down the bend of the hook. And you really need to take your time and alter your angle of approach from your thread and your bobbin. And I'm going to go about halfway. I don't want to go all the way. I want to leave plenty of room, leave that action available. And I'm just going to wrap that nice and tight all the way back up. And I'll go just a little bit further, right where I cast on that thread, right about that tip of that hook. I think that's a fair guesstimate. Now, to really ensure longevity and, I don't know, keep things flowing smooth, I'm going to add just a little bit of this ultraviolet UV clear thin, and this will really just kind of make sure that this it goes nowhere. I don't want that going anywhere. So that really ensures that that's locked down nice and tight. There we go. That's going nowhere. All right, keep that out of the way. And we're going to leave this facing forward. And now we are going to tie in our tail. Now, for this tail, you could use a lot of different things. Just a piece of foam or this or that. But for this one, kind of stepping outside the box, I don't know if anybody's used mink for a tail for a little mouse, but that's what I'm going to use. This is a... Here's the package. This is just your standard Mink Zonker Black. Got a little bag of these. So first I'm gonna, obviously you got to kind of measure things out. I'm gonna go maybe the length of the hook, length and a half. We'll see what a length and a half. So there's a length, and there's a half. I don't know. We're just going to eyeball it. You can always adjust it a little bit later. Yeah, I like that. So just go ahead and trim that off right away. Working with a nice little length. And on the other ones, this is what I have done. First one I stripped all the way, and I kind of was kicking myself afterwards, saying, Aaron, why did you cut that whole thing off? Well, I don't know. I'm new at this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and strip this down. This wonderful, wonderful mink. I'm not going to waste it, of course. I'm just going to throw it into a little pill bottle. Save it for later. Who knows? Dub it on something. And I'm taking this down right to the hide. If you notice before I took a notch kind of down here towards the end, I am going to leave a little tuft of hair on the very end. Because I believe, and my thinking is, that by doing so, when it's in the water will have no choice but to bring that down to a really nice pointy tip. I have not personally seen too many mice down by the river, but I don't know. You tell me. Alright, so I got this little rat looking mouse tail now, and before I tie in my tail, I am going to take my bodkin and I am going to poke a small hole in it. I'm just going to tie in right about there, and I want this hole to stick out just a little bit. So I got my bodkin, I got a hole in there. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow me to run this monofilament through there, and that's going to help keep that tail stick out just a little bit. So we'll tie in the tail. Make sure that it's in there nice and tight. Get a good bind down out of that. Alright, now this piece of mono, the weed guard, I can give that a nice sharp fold, nice bend towards the bend. And we're going to find that little hole that I pre-poked with the mono. Or not. Let's come in here with the bodkin. Find that. There it is. There it is. We'll get it. There we go. So I got that poked through there. And I got a nice sharp bend. I'm going to proceed to lock this down a little bit more. And that is my tail configuration. Probably have to build up a little bit of a dam there. So there we go. Don't want too much of that sticking out of the back end there. So I'm going to come through here with the clippers, fold that back, and I'm going to cut that off. And in addition to cutting it off, just to give that a little bit of shape, just knock the flashlight over. I'm going to come in here with a little bit of heat. And make a little bit of a bubble. That makes a little button on the end, which will help keep that flipped up. At least that's the theory. That's what I'm going with. The fish will have to tell me later. I'm really looking forward to snagging a really large smallmouth or a largemouth. Anyway, get off your butt and catch a bass. That's my plan. Alright, so now to get to the body. To the body for this, like I said, I am using a black deer body here. This is obviously, it's dyed. You can tell it's dyed. After working with it for a while, your digits start to turn the same color. So this is after, I don't know, a few different attempts at them and whatnot. And actually I came through with my razor blade and I just cut that down real nice and short. Just to see how, I don't know, after a while you start getting built up and you start losing areas that you've cut. So this is going to consist a lot of stacking and packing. Not too much stacking involved, just on the top side and on the head. So off camera, I'll do a couple here. I'm just going through and I'm just cleaning out this deer hair, getting all the under fur cleaned out. And on the bottom side, my method is going to be without stacking. I'm just going to come in and I'm going to trim the tips of my deer hair like so. And on the bottom side, I will approach it with my right hand. Get this right on the back side. Get under there, and I just kind of smash it in there, get it started, get it seated, But nice one good loose wrap. And since I'm keeping a good pinch on it, I'm not really constricting it too much. So in that second wrap, I can really start to drive things home. And I'll take my thread forward just a little bit. And this is going to be on the downside. So I'm going to mash those all down, get my thread in front of that big old gab. And you can't be afraid to twist and turn it. So I got one down there, and I'm going to do a second one down there. Looking at studying my sample exhibit A that's from the fly shop, kind of looked like it was almost like a 2-to-1 ratio of top material versus bottom material, 2 being the bottom. So, because I think if you just did it, you know, kind of as a 1-to-1, the fibers up front would end up sticking straight up, perpendicular to the hook. So once again, this is some trimmed on both ends. I'm just going to get right up in there. Get that first wrap. The first wrap is always so important. And on the second wrap, I can kind of feel a little more comfortable. And everything's kind of up and out that way, but when I start to apply that tension, so there we go. Run it forward a little bit. A little mash it down. Alright, so got my first round of the bottoms tied in, and I'm going to work my thread about midway back. So I'm just going to work it back just a little bit. Let's keep it in that clump. Here we go. Alright, get the thread out of the way. Now this next batch is going to be on top. So this being the top, I will want to stack these, and people want to use items as a unit of measure as far as how much of a clump. I go a pretty good clump. I mean, it's like a bigger than a pencil to start off, at least on the bottom, and that's this particular hair that I'm working with. I start off with quite a bit, but when I start cleaning out the down fibers and the under fur out, it really thins out. So this is a wonderful homemade stacker. I did not make it. It was a gift. So I'm just going to kind of... Alright, so on the top hairs on this, what I'm going to do is I stacked my tips. I got those all lined up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim my ends nice and flush. And right where that is, so I'm going to aim for the middle of where I did my first 2 stacks. That's where I'm doing it. You can do it anywhere you want. But as I do that, kind of encourage it to mush around and spread out. And I'm going to do my best to keep just the tips of the fibers on the top half, and on the lower half I'm going to leave that dedicated to the non-stacked, trimmed on both end body hair. It's all body hair, but for the mouse body. And on the bottom half, My clumps that I'm using, I would say, are 10% smaller than the clumps I'm using for the top. So when I was saying earlier that my ratio is kind of a 2-to-1, that's really not a fair assessment. So on the bottom side, I got these both sides trimmed off. I don't know why I bother trimming off the bottom, or the tips on this. So once again, I'll do one soft wrap, come in there, and do a second wrap with a little bit more tension, and coax that to spin down and around. But you guys are getting the picture, I hope. Just a little bit of wrap and stack and pack and go bananas. Oh, I've got to turn the main work lights back on, my video lights. I have a fluorescent tube that I have a tube light up top for just kind of reading and whatnot, along with my other soft lights off to my side. I love having options as far as lighting is concerned. I think proper lighting, it just does wonders. So there we go. Alright, got another one on the bottom, and we'll do another one on the bottom, although yeah, we'll do one more on the bottom because then we can back it up a little bit and do another bundle on the top. So for those of you who are watching, obviously there's some interest in fly tying. Maybe you've tied a mouse before, maybe you have not tied a mouse. I'd love to hear about the mice that you've tied or tried. Try to tie a mice. Yep, I went there. Alright, on the bottom side, got that one soft wrap. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Get that second wrap. And it really wants to spin. But we'll get her where we want it to go. Otherwise, we will trim it away. Here we go. All right. I think we'll give this a little bit of a trim up top. I'm just getting the longer ones out of the way, because I'm coming in hot with a bundle for the top. But what do? Snow is on the ground. The river's not quite frozen yet, but my waders have a slight leak, which is not that bad when it's, say, July or August or maybe even September. But come December in the mighty Mississippi, I think having a hole in your waders would be detrimental to your fishing outing. So, yeah, it is what it is. Hopefully I'll get those replaced sooner than later. Maybe I'll have to clear a few driveways, raise a little funds. That's one thing about fishing, is it is not cheap. It's not free. but it is what you make of it. So before I tie that on, trim that down. That's one of the lessons I quickly remembered and learned or relearned. Just trimming those tips off, those ends off. There we go. I think that'll do it. And we'll bring our thread forward a little bit. Pack this all down. And while I got a good finger on it, I'm just going to go ahead and trim that off. Here we go. I'm digging it so far. So if you're just joining me, you know, welcome. Oh, haha. Yeah, that would be nice. Nice for a birthday present. But I should get some before then. I definitely want to be, I don't know, I do want to do some winter fly fishing this winter. Buddy Dave, he goes out all, doesn't let the snow affect his going out. I guess he goes down to the by the power plant, where the water is nice and not so frozen. I'm not going to say warm, but definitely want to layer up. So while you're watching, go ahead and hit the share button. That's the best way to get the word out. My hands are full. So, anyways, I'm going to do another one on the bottom. So I'm going to trim off these tips on both sides. And once again, I'm just going to get in there nice and tight. I get in there and do one soft wrap. And that second wrap can really start to lock things down. Get the thread forward a little bit. We're going to pack and mash. So, who's for hair stackers or packers? I have not used one. I've seen some that look like fingernail clippers almost, but they got a sizable groove on them. Okay, we're gonna bring our thread up midway and stand by for a bundle on the top. I am super excited to fish this. It's always fun watching a fish take something from the surface. There's just a lot of action and energy and whatnot involved with it. I mean, if you think about it, the fish, I don't know, more or less spends his entire life underwater, and for you to leave that environment, to splash yourself out of your environment, seems kind of crazy for something as simple as a fish. Granted, we use rockets to get into outer space for exploration. Is it just a matter of seeing what's on the other side for that fish? I mean, when a fish takes a fly and it breaks the surface and it looks out, what does it see? Is it focused in on what it just tried to grab? Because in theory it should be in its mouth. But is it looking at you holding the big stick? I don't know. Deep thoughts. Deep thoughts. So I'm going to measure this out a little bit. And if you notice, I'm not putting too big a clumps on there. I mean, they're pretty girthy as far as diameter. Again, get this. I'm going right there on the butts. Right there on the butts. One soft wrap, second wrap, add a little bit more tension on there. And mash that down and around a little bit. And away we go. And I think I'm going to do 1 and 1 now. The Dr. Slick. So they are like fingernail clippers. I suppose I could just sacrifice, go out and you know, an old pair of fingernail clippers. You could grind it down, or some people might argue, you know, oh, just use a big pen. You know, use what you have. That's most important, I think. Using what you have. Get that thread in there nice and tight. Go for another under segment. Really want to pack this all in there nice and tight. That's one of the key things. Yep. Pack, spin, cut, tie, wash, rinse, repeat. Get that on there. And that really locks it down. There's probably some other better videos of how to do this mouse, but I'm doing it live right now, tonight, in front of the World Wide Web. All mistakes included, which is why this is going to be part 2 of the live stream, because part 1, little catastrophic failure there. That was a little bit of a challenge. Did not see that coming. Hello, brother. Welcome back. How many times have you lost your stream during your feed during a live stream on account of you bumping into something? I'm sure I'm not the first person that has done that. I highly doubt I'll be the last person to have ever do something like that, but what do you do? It's embarrassing. Move on. You know, it's like when you break a thread while you're tying a fly, or you know, your hackle pliers come undone. I don't know, I just silently swear in my own mind and smile. And if it's something that can be repairable or patched back together, that's what you got to do. Cast on your thread once again. Suck it up, buttercup, and move on. Alright. Coming in there nice and tight. Well, not yet. Loose wrap. Second wrap, add a little bit more tension. And on the third wrap, we can get that half a spin. Here we go. Alright, so that is going to be it for the bottom. Here we go. There we go. And trim a little bit more of this off on top. There you go. Alright. One last little piece for the body. I'm going to do a nice sizable chunk. Yeah. Had my meeting with the Elks Lodge today. We had our memorial service. One of the One of the things that all lodges do, that's partake in a annual memorial service. I believe they're all in December. One of those major mandates, majors. So run that through the stacker. And we'll kind of get a couple of these loose ones out. Yeah, I think that'll be just fine. That'll be just fine. I kind of feel like a magician sometimes when I'm transferring material from one hand to another. You know, almost like it's an illusion or a magic trick or something. Alright, we'll lock that couple wraps. I'll smush and mash that down. Really let it spread out. There we go. Alright. So that is the body. And for the ears, this is just your run-of-the-mill craft foam. I don't have anything to measure. Do I have anything that could measure this? Well, sure I do. I have my handy dandy. This is an important message for everybody. Do not accept candy or rides from strangers. Stranger danger. Brought to you by the Police Officer Federation of Minneapolis. So there we go. We'll take that, I don't know, eyeballing it. 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, 1/16 of an inch. I don't know. Just your standard stuff. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and just take the foam and fold it over and pretend I'm doing a Valentine. And I'm going to cut out a heart, or at least a rough shape of a heart. That's just kind of, that's the beginnings of it. Ow. And we were talking earlier about, you know, those hair stackers. Not stackers. Packers. But I have found on my first couple previous mice that using fingernail clippers can kind of help me shape a nice round edge. Or at least a close enough round edge. I think that'll work. What do you think? I think so. So, without getting into your fibers too much, I'm going to just do a couple, just like everything else we've tied. You just take a couple loose wraps. And a few more loose wraps. And then you just slowly build up your tension. Here we go. So I kind of did a little figure 8 on there. And I really bite into that foam a little bit. The tip of that heart shape. And then for giggles, I'm going to run a couple back here. A couple back here. Yeah. Here we go. We got we got mouse ears. I think that'll be just fine. I like using the foam. I don't know, I suppose it would help it float. Help it float a little bit. I don't know. Ask the fish. That's all we can do. Just throw it out there and hope for the best. So I'm going to do just a little clump for a top. For the first piece of the head. And on this first one and this first one only, I'm not going to trim anything off. So this will be just like all the other ones that I've done on the top. Except this time, I'm just going to let it all flare out. Because I want a little bit of hair on the front. Get in there nice and tight. Spread it around a little bit. There we go. I think that'll be a beautiful, beautiful thing. Gonna give that a mash back. And get ready to spin, spin, spin. So the body is all stacked and packed and tops and bottoms. And for the head of this mouseketeer, a brave little mouse, that'll henceforth go in battle with a fish, is all spun. We'll spin this deer hair. And like I said earlier, after tying a few of these, if you have not mastered spinning deer hair, you are SOL. Alright, so I'm going to get my deer hair right in there nice and tight. Do one wrap, one soft wrap, that second wrap, that third wrap, and then just a few more wraps beyond that. There we go. That's our first of many. You can't be afraid to really grab hold of that hook and pack that hair back. A nice packing job will result in a cleaner, smoother head. One of the things I would like to start experimenting with is making just some foam or some spun deer hair poppers. Kind of running along the same lines of what we're constructing here. But these ones have some multicolors on them, and like the bottoms are red and the tops are yellow with black spots, and it's some really good stuff out there. Alright, so one wrap and two, and there we go. After the second and third wrap, you don't see anything spinning. You know it's locked down. There we go. So just a few more spins and we will have the head complete. This is one of those flies that it takes patience, it takes dedication. I'm sure you could start it and walk away, come back and do a couple more, and a couple more turns, a couple more stacks. Now if you have finger problems, if your fingers aren't quite what they used to be, this can be kind of an arduous task. I don't know why I lost focus there. It will be back, I hope. There we go. Back in focus. Hocus pocus by focus. Get in there and spin. Spin, dear hair, spin. And pack. I think I'm good for at least one more small one. Because like everything else, you do not want to crowd the eye. You don't want to do it. Trust me, you don't want to do it. Been there, done that. Crowded the eye before. I regretted every moment after that. It was a sad, sad, sad situation. But it was a teachable moment. It's one of the, I don't know, telltale signs of a beginner tire is they crowd the eye. I know I've done it my share of times, and I still do it. But we get together and when we learn. All right. 1, 2, and 3. There we go. I think that'll do it. Or should I do one more? Do I? Do I do one more? Or is that being too... I'll do one more. I'll do a small one. I will make a beginner mistake and do too much. But once you get rolling, it's hard to stop. Once you get rolling, it is hard to stop. So I was thinking, kind of as an idea, stealing this idea literally directly off of my bathroom wall. Next year's fly fishing adventures, I will record those, and I want to put them together on a calendar for the next year. I think that would be a lot of fun, doing my own fly fishing themed calendar. I've been I see quotes and I like them, and I kind of make up my own. Like, your imagination's your only limitation. I coined that phrase, I think. Can't be the first person to say it, but I'll take it. I'll take credit for it. All right, so we have stacked, we have packed, we have spun until we can spin and pack and spin no more. Just getting there. Do a quick whip finish, and I'll do a second one just for giggles and grins. Make sure that's locked down nice and tight. Zip, zero, zilch chance of that coming out or undone. So I am done with my 2-aught black thread. I cannot, for the life of me, find what I did with my fly tying toothbrush. I had one in my kit at one point, and I've had to take it out for one reason or another. Anyways, I got this little brush here, and I am just teasing all these fibers that have been so cooperative on the spinning. No major malfunctions. Just kind of coaxing everything out, getting things where they need to be. And by the lack of stuff falling out is tricking me into believing that I did a fairly decent job on getting this all tied in. Because if you're tugging at it like that and the whole thing falls apart, well, there you have it, folks. There's your problem. So, trimming up the body and forming of the body is next. Hopefully the camera will be able to keep up and stay in focus. What I am using, it's very dangerous. This is extremely sharp. Using a double-sided razor blade. And here's a tip. When I am done using my double-sided razor blades, I put them back into the little piece of wax paper, and I mark them as to how many flies this particular razor blade has been used to cut and trim with. So this blade has 3 flies under its belt. You know, I'm still new at this. This is my first razor blade, or my second one. Don't know what happened to the first one; it disappeared. But just to kind of keep track of your usage, you know, keep track of your mileage. So I am going to flip this mouse upside down, back into the vise. If I had a rotary, that would be the opportune time to rotary that over, but we're going to get this kind of focused back in here. And what I'm going to do is give my razor blade a slight bend, and ever so gently, this is on the bottom side, just going to come in there and do some magic. Sometimes, I don't know if one side is sharper than the other, but I do know that sometimes it does make there we go, it does make a little bit of a difference on the angle of approach. Here we go. So we just come in here and play with it and get a little bit of a haircut. And don't want to do too much at once. You know, it's always good to kind of get it out of the vise and just kind of fluff it around for a second. Never want to take off too much at once. You can always cut more. It's really hard to go back in trying to glue it all back together. And is that the difference? Have I used this razor blade beyond its expected? I don't know. Let me try a brand new one. Let me see if I don't have a brand new one. Where's my box? Box O razor blades, please. Because maybe 3 is too much. Holy smokes, I think I just did too much. Dang it. Wow. That's what happens if you take too much off at once with a brand new blade. Oh, I'm kicking myself now. So, word of the wise, don't use your razor blades more than you need to. Well, I'll roll with it. It's not what I wanted, but dadgummit, I'll have to roll with it. Shoot. Alright. Well, that was a bummer. Could have been worse. Could have been a lot worse. So I'm going to go up here on the rear and trim off some of the stuff that's just kind of not part of the overall shape. Because at this point, that's what I'm just going for, is shape. Get some of these long ones. Trim his butt back. All right. Well. Now, when you go to blow off a fly like that, after trimming it, turn yourself away from your workstation. That's my only advice. That head is not quite what I wanted it to be, but what do you do? Alright, well, it is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. I kind of wanted, I don't know, it's not what I was envisioning in my mind. I wanted a little bit flatter of a head, a little bit broader, but it is what it is. Focus, focus. Alakazam. Alright. So we will prepare our eyes. For eyes, I have these kind of creepy red eyes. Once again, that's kind of the basis for tying a black one. I think it's a lot of fun. Kind of creepy with the red eyes. And to stick these on, I am I'm just going to use a little bit of this UV head cement. Richard's asking, have I tied on going side to side in a sawing motion to cut the hair? Yeah. My blade is just, it was well used. It served its purpose in life. So I'm getting in here with some of this UV head cement. I just need to take a big blob of it. Less is more, I know. I really want it to stick in there really good. Maybe even down there on the side a little bit. Now this stuff, it's hard to describe the smell. It's not a pleasant smell. I think, if we can make air fresheners for cars and bathrooms and whatnot, I don't know why we can't have stuff that just doesn't smell so mouse-like. Alright, we'll get in here. And we'll get our eyes where we want them. I'm satisfied with that. For now, we'll hit it with the ultraviolet light. And that'll get the initial bit down, and then I will come back with just a little dab more. I think that'll do it. I think that'll do it. Zap it with the light again. I have 3 new batteries in there, so hopefully that'll activate the chain reaction. I don't know, sounds interesting what actually is happening on a molecular level. The fact that the wavelengths of the light interacting with this liquid chemical that results in immediate lack of movement. Just locks it down. That's in there and that's in there, nice and good. Okay, so the eyes are in. The eyes are on. The body's trimmed. I wish I would have took that tail out just a little bit longer, or done the body hair just a little bit shorter. You know, proportion-wise, that's kind of a short tail, if you ask me. But what do you do? All right, so for the front, for the whiskers, I'm going to tie that on, but I'm going to use some UTC 140 red. That way my little mouse can have a little cute little red nose, and all of its friends will say, "Oh, that's so cute. That's so cute." And for whiskers on this little mouse, this mouse gets to hang out with the moose. Moose whiskers. Not moose whiskers, but moose mane. Definitely, you don't want to go too thick with these. And what I do is I trim them up on both sides, and then I'm going to take them and I'm going to flip them opposite of each other. And I'm going to line them back up, and I'm going to give them a little bit of a spin. That way I have some long ones and short ones facing in either direction. And because I don't want to go too many, I'm just going to split that in half. I literally have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, maybe a dozen or so little whiskers. So get those on the front. These are coming in natural. They're brown. And again, you know, it's one of those, use the material you have. Gonna figure 8 wrap these nice and tight. Really lock those down. And we'll do a couple up front. And whip finish on the front. So the red is just for decorative purposes, really. I mean, you could try to keep that thread in from the very get-go, from the beginning, but I figure with all the trimming, it behooves me to just go ahead and trim it off, and then come back at a later date and add some of this fancy red thread for a cute little red nose. Trim off my whiskers nice and even. Eyeball it. That looks good. And to address the brownness of the whiskers on my black mouse, come in here with just a little bit of paint marker. And will that really keep it, you know, looking black? Probably not. But it sure looks good. Alright, and the last and final step is to address the weed guard that we installed way back yesterday in step 1. And I want this to just follow a nice natural bend. And some of the critics might say, "Oh, Aaron, what are you doing? I don't know if that's such a good idea." But that's what I'm going to do. If I can find it again. There it is. After tying a fly, after tying a mouse of this magnitude, this mighty mouse, things get way out of place. Okay, I think that'll suit me just fine. Trim that off. And I'll come in here with the UV, a little dab on the tip. And a generous little blob down on the head. And I am going to stick this right in there and just feel it around till I feel the shank of the hook. And, you know, if this comes undone on account of catching a big old bass, locking one down, and I have to redo this weed guard, that's fine. That's I'm willing to take that risk. That's something I'm willing to do. And make sure that's, because this stuff is magic. It's absolutely magical. So this is a little black mouse. He is ready for some action. He is going to hit the Mississippi, get some fish excited. Maybe it's a little bit too much light. Does that help? I don't know. It's really hard to see this this black mouse, but I don't know. The stuff we learn. Yeah, next one I tie, if I tie another one, I'll probably end up tying another one, is going to be a longer tail, you know, in comparison to this first one. I don't know. I think maybe the body is a little bit fuller. You know, I'm learning here, guys. A little bit bigger whiskers, and that head on there. I stopped shaping the head on this one because that first gouge with the brand new razor blade, it cut like butter. So I am going to dispose my old razor blade. Get rid of that safely. And on my one that I just recently used, this will, on my piece of paper, I just give it a mark. That way I will know that this razor blade in this little package has been used on one fly. And my little workstation over here on my left, it's got a nice little magnet which holds everything down. So, alright folks, that is a deer hair mouse. This is a Veterans View for You production. So yeah, happy fishing, happy tying, tight lines, and all that jazz. We'll sign off with my little sign here, Veterans View for You. Check me out. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Yeah, there it is. Thank you, folks. We'll see you next week. All right, bye.